Hey everyone, welcome. Happy Monday morning. No, it's not a diametrically opposed term. You can actually have a happy Monday morning. Actually, there's three words in there. Happy Monday morning. Anyway, hey, I want to make sure everyone can see and hear me okay. So I'm going to come on over here and just do me a favor, pop on into the comments and let me know that you can see and hear me. And if so, we'll go ahead and get started. Yeah, teach. Okay, Nicholas says we're good to go. So we're good. Let's go. Let's come on over to our presentation. Hey, can you believe we have like 3 weeks left is all? 3 weeks. So what we're going to do is, okay, Ahmed, all right, fantastic. We've got 2 lectures left. This one, module 12, and then we're going to do module 13, and then we're going to do a review for the final. That's it. We are so close to the end. You've got your paper to write, but we'll take care of that later on. So let's go ahead and jump into our lecture on finance, accounting, and money. So, at least in my world, finance and accounting, I don't know that stuff. That's not me. That's not what I do. Luckily, that's not solely what this is about, right? It's really about economic things, today's lecture. Now, there is a video by Dave Allred that is in the list of readings. You know, oh, wrong button. We're going to look at that other thing later on. You know, we're going to look at Tulipomania, Travels of Marco Polo, Economic Organization of P.O.W., and Romance of a Busy Broker. We're going to kind of take a different approach on a lot of those, just so you know. Don't worry, I'm totally setting you up for the reading and for the quiz and for the discussion, but we're going to have a little fun along the way. But when it comes to accounting, there's a nice little video in there from Dave Aldrich, who is like the guru of accounting. He's going to tell you all about the history and the background. He's going to tell you things like, hey, the terms ledger and debit and credit, all that, they were all started in a book from the 1400s, going way back when to Europe and so forth. He's going to let you know about that, has some historical interest and significance. But what we are going to do is we're going to jump into these readings and play with these. So with that, all right, looks like we have all kinds of folks with us. That is fantastic. All right, so Tulipomania. You guys might know this story, in fact. It's a story that talks about where in the Netherlands, the Dutch just went cuckoo bananas over tulips and created this great, huge economic bubble. What Tulipomania is really all about. So, remember, I've told you this is not a history class. We are looking at these events through the lens, we're looking at today through the lens of these readings. Well, in the same way, economic bubbles are not history. They happen pretty often, and I'm going to share a whole bunch with you. But here's one economic bubble that totally hit me. So back in the 1990s, yeah, that long ago, back in the 1990s, or actually 1980s or so, comic books were hot. I mean, they were hot, 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 hot. And there was a huge comic book bubble. And furthermore, a lot of comic books companies started. This is a comic book that I own, and it is a Wildcats, Jim Lee Wildcats #1 gold variant cover signed by Jim Lee. Now, the majority of you have no idea who Jim Lee is, let alone Wildcats and Image Comics that he helped co-found. Well, Jim Lee was massive. He was big. And if we come over to this, I know you can, whoops, I banged a camera. I know you can barely hear me, but this is some original art by Jim Lee, that's connected with, or it's a page inside of Alpha Flight number 55. So in this frame, I have the original art by Jim Lee, as well as the comic book that is included. So let's come back over here. I know I banged the camera. So back when I had this, well, I still have this gold variant cover back. But there was a time that it was worth $300. This comic right here, $300. That original art that I just showed you by Jim Lee was probably worth a few thousand. Okay. Today you can probably get this gold variant cover for $30, and I might be able to get a couple hundred for that original art. So what happened? Well, the bubble burst, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. What is a bubble, and what do we mean by a bubble bursting? Now, the reading is all about the tulip market in the Netherlands back, 1600s or so. I don't know. Doesn't matter. I don't care about the history. I care about the economics. And later on, if you so choose, you can watch this really fascinating little video. I'll include this presentation in the links when I share this later on, this video, that really talks about Tulipomania. But what I'm going to do, instead of just, talking through the story, is I want to talk about the aspects of what makes an economic bubble and what causes it to swell and what ultimately causes it to burst. And I'm going to do this by talking about tulips and comic books. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing that goes into an economic bubble is when something is highly desirable, but it is rare. Okay? Now, in the case of the Netherlands and so forth, the Netherlands, they were like the Dutch. They were like the shipping world commerce distribution power of the day. And they were rich, right? And, you know the rest of that saying. They were rich. And they wanted to show off their wealth. Pecuniary emulation. We talked about this last week. You want people to see that you are successful. How do we do that today? Well, with our homes, maybe with our clothes, with our car, with our bling. Nobody beats a Batman ring. So we want people to see that we are financially well off, that we are successful, that we're smart, hardworking, and you want to do business with us. We talked about that all last week. Well, they displayed their wealth through tulips. Tulips was, and it still is, by the way, they love tulips. Tulips was the way that they would display their wealth. And as we're going to see, tulips, the really nice tulips, were actually uber rare. So let me explain. First of all, a tulip only blooms for a few, months out of the year, right? And it takes time for a tulip to come to fruition. Furthermore, the really nice tulips, I mean, the ones that were awesome, that they loved, they had a virus in them. They didn't know what this virus was or how it worked or what did it. But the thing that was significant about this virus is that it would put these cool, flamey stripes through the tulips. And so these tulips became really rare and really desirable because they were rare and cool and all that sort of stuff. And tulips are kind of temperamental things, right? If any of you or your parents have ever planted tulips, they're pretty awesome, but they only last for so long and they're temperamental. So the tulips they wanted were rare. Okay, now in the same way with comic books, there are some really rare comic books out there that are worth a lot of money. Let's see, Detective Comics. Oh, I forget which Detective Comics is the first appearance of Batman. I think it's like 17 or 47, something like that. First appearance of a character causes rarity, or death of a character, or origin story of a character. I have a lot. I have a lot of comic books. I have a lot of comic books that have these elements of rarity, and they were therefore expensive. Okay, so rarity is the first one. Low supply, high demand. Well, in the case of tulips, the supply of those really awesome tulips that had the virus in them and so forth was really low, but the demand was sky high. Everybody wanted those tulips. And so, as you can imagine, the price goes up. Well, it's the same thing with a rare comic book. You could have a comic book that there's only a few of them left in the world, and yet they were so desirable and so in demand that people would pay, in some cases, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of dollars for a comic book. Now, thing to remember about the comic books is back when these like Batman origin and first appearance of Superman and all that, when those comic books were made, they were printed on crap paper and they were meant to be disposable. So the vast majority of the comic books printed with first appearance of Superman, Action Comics #1, I think it is, they don't exist anymore. They don't exist because they've been trashed, right? They were made for kids after all. So very, very low supply, very rare, high demand means prices go up. Same thing with the tulips. Prices are going up. Now, as I mentioned before, these things then start to become status symbols. And as you know, when something becomes a status symbol, that alone will raise the price. So, I mean, I'm just going to make something up. Let's say a Gucci bag, right? A Gucci bag is a Gucci bag. It's a bag. I have dozens and dozens of bags. You don't have to tell me what a bag is. I know what a bag is. But none of my bags have the word Gucci on it, right? Therefore, when something becomes a status symbol, that alone increases its price. So in the case of tulips, if you had a whole bunch of the really, really rare tulips, the status of that alone would increase the price. Same thing goes with a comic book. I have a few comic books that if I held them up, you would recognize, and it's kind of like, oh, whoa, right? Now, we're not in the comic book world, you and I'm not anymore. But if we were to go to a Comic Con or something like that with these comics, my status would increase, and the status of those comics, therefore, the price would go up. Okay. Then we get into speculation. This is the beginning of the end for a bubble. In fact, it's the beginning of the bubble just going nuts. Let me explain what speculation is, because this is when things get nuts. Speculation is when we are no longer buying something to use it or to even resell it immediately. We're buying it solely because we think it's going to go up in price. That's it. We are speculating that something worth $1 today will be worth $100 in a month. Therefore, we're going to buy a whole bunch of them today and just sit on them solely with the intent of reselling. Okay. Now, as you know what Aristotle feels about that and so forth. You understand that there's the natural use of an item and an unnatural use. The natural use is you actually use the item, right? Pair of shoes, use the shoes. Unnatural use of the item is you buy it to resell it in retail. Well, this one kind of takes that unnatural use and goes crazy with it. It's saying, I don't care what it is I'm buying. I have no intention of ever using it. It's worthless to me. but I know it's not worthless to somebody else, so I'm going to buy a whole bunch and just on speculation. Now, this happened in tulips. People would buy loads and loads and loads of tulips. They would mortgage their home, take the money they got from the mortgage to buy a whole bunch of tulips, to hold on to those tulips because eventually they can resell them at a profit. Okay, that's speculation. In the case of comic books, for a long time I had a standing policy that any comic book that came out that was a #1 in a series, I would buy 5 or 6 of the #1s because I was speculating that maybe 20 years from now, you know, Wildcats #1 is going to be worth bank. And I'm going to be able to retire, put my kids through college, buy an island, who knows what. That is speculation. There's no guarantee that any of this will happen, but you think it is, and you're willing to go into debt to do it. Then we have stockpiling. And stockpiling is when, okay, we have all these things. I'm sorry, I'm going to make a quick little adjustment on this. Okay, we have all these things that we've bought on speculation, but we don't need them, and we're not going to resell them for quite some time because we want the price to go up. So we're going to just buy them and hoard them, buy them and hoard them. Now, the thing about this is the price does indeed go up because as people buy and hoard, stockpile material, it becomes less, available. Therefore, the price goes up. So think about back when you couldn't get toilet paper. It's not that toilet paper was all of a sudden this amazing, valuable thing and everybody was buying it because they needed it, because they were having the crap scared out of them and they needed more toilet paper. They were stockpiling it, which means it became harder to get. Now, the price didn't necessarily go up, but it disappeared from their shelves for a long time. This technology that I'm using right now, a lot of people, bought it all so that they could then resell it when the prices would go up, because people were meeting from home. So stockpiling meant that price would go up because there was less supply in the environment, but it wasn't going up, just because it was more valuable, right? They were just reducing supply, and you've got it all in your garage. Okay, futures. Futures is another classic indication of a bubble. A future is when you don't even buy the thing. You just you buy the bet that it is going to go up, right? So this gets into all the nuances of finance and so forth, and the markets and how they work, and that is not my wheelhouse. But basically, it's laying a bet that something is going to go up in price. You're buying futures. If you think it's going to go down in price, you short the item. You bank that it's going to go down. Therefore, if it goes down, you get money. The point of all this is people weren't even buying the stuff anymore. They were just buying the future value of something. So, for example, let's say that I have a comic book, and you buy the comic book and sell it to somebody else, and they think it's going to go up, and they think it's going to go up. Instead of buying the comic book, you might just buy the future cost of it. It gets complicated, but that brings us to our next thing. No regulation. All right? People are totally free to try to figure out how to make money off of this thing any way they want. And during the tulip push back in the Netherlands, there was no real regulation. There were no stock market regulations that would control this, no banking, no borrowing, and so forth. And so people were finding the weirdest, most extraordinary ways of making money off of this tulip craze. Well, here's what happens. Oh, one more thing, by the way, low buy-in. You can, you take comic books, right? Comic books, you could, buy a comic book for $1.25. Back when I was doing them, they're like $2.50 now. And that's a pretty low buy-in. And so you could buy a number one fresh, right? And anybody could get in. So it wasn't just the uber rich who could get in, anyone could. Well, why is this problematic for a bubble? Well, if there are 1,000 uber rich people all buying and trading and so on and so forth, okay, fine. But the whole economy isn't hinging on these 1,000 people doing all this stuff. But if 80% of the population is hawking stuff and borrowing and mortgaging stuff to buy tulips and tulip futures to speculate again, this is 80% making that number up. But if everybody's doing it because of a low buy-in, then the whole economy is hinged on the future value of this thing. Well, eventually, people get wise. Somebody at some point wakes up and goes, holy crap, people. Do you understand what we've done here? And I'm not kidding, you'll see it in the reading. There was like some tulips that were worth, 3 years' salary and stuff like that. It's like we have run the price up on what is essentially just a damn plant that is showy. This is crazy. And people would say, you know what? I'm going to get out of the market. I think this has gone as high as it can. I'm going to get out. So a few people start to get out. Well, others start to notice that these people are getting out. And so then they start to get out because, well, what do they know that I don't know? And eventually, everybody panics. Everybody wants out now because they see the price dropping. I mean, in a really bad bubble, you can see the price dropping day by day, hour by hour. And so people are freaking out and there's a rush to sell. Well, when everything is really expensive but yet isn't worth anything and there's a rush to sell, the price goes down, 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 and finally your bubble bursts. All that value that was really just made up and fake, it was fake value, all that value disappears. Well, the problem is they bought that fake value with real value, such as money, the money you have in your home, things like that. Okay. And yeah, I have a whole basement. I'm not making this stuff up, folks. I have a whole basement full of probably thousands of comic books and hundreds of action figures and all kinds of film cells, animation cells, and original art that all together, I mean, I've probably spent tens of thousands of dollars on it, and I could probably sell it all for $1,000, and that's it. That's a bubble bursting. Now, the comic book market isn't the only bubble that affected me. I want to show you a couple of other bubbles, and I want you to pay particular attention to the fingerprint of a bubble. Let me show you. So, the dot-com bubble of 2000. All right. I understand this is before your time, before you were really in the economy per se, but bear with me, right? Here's the thing is, back when the internet came out, yeah, I remember when .com became a thing. I am pre-internet. I am pre-dial-up modem. I am pre-BBS. So I remember when all this stuff came out. And when the internet came out, everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best thing ever. And by the way, they were right. But the problem is everybody was chasing after every single business plan that had the word .com after it. It didn't matter if your business plan or your business said .com after it. That was it. It's like BitChain. Well, no, we'll talk about when we get to Bitcoin. But so everybody was throwing money, investing money after the most ludicrous things. Okay, so you see this chart? this is the value of Intel Corporation. Intel from 1994 to 2005. If for those of you who remember, I worked for Intel. Intel makes CPUs, the central processing units. The vast majority of your computers have Intel chips in them. Intel made money for all the servers. We needed more servers for all these .com things. Intel was making so much money. Okay? Well, when I was hired on with Intel, I did some math and I looked at the past history of how Intel had done over the past 20 years. And I speculated that if the company continues to do what it did for the next 20 years, that I could retire a multimillionaire at 55. I mean, it was simple math. If the company does the next 20 years what it did the previous 20 years, multimillionaire by 55. Well, let me show you this chart. See that red line? That's the day I was hired. So no, the company did not do over the next 20 years, that red line, it did not do over the next 20 years what it did the previous 20 years. It lost tons and tons and tons of its value. I will be turning 55 here in a few months, and I won't be retiring. Now, don't worry, I'm fine. And it was a great ride at Intel. But the point is, that bubble burst. And that is the fingerprint of a burst bubble. Let's look at this one, the housing bubble. 2015 is really kind of when it petered out and was finally done. Maybe you remember the housing bubble. This was the financial markets. Trust me, your parents remember the housing bubble. During this time, everybody was buying a home with close to zero down. I mean, low buy-in, right? Buying homes on some really, really, really shady deals. Well, recognize this fingerprint going up, like here, up. Well, here, up, and then crash. You want to see these two lines? My father was worth millions. And he did it mostly in the housing market because he made money over and over and over in the housing market. And then for a long time, he owned a bed and breakfast in Telluride, Colorado. Well, finally, after 15 years of running a bed and breakfast in this ski resort town, he sold it and he said, I am going to build myself, and he always wanted to do this, I am going to build a luxury home in Telluride. And this luxury home, given the prices, the way they were going back in the day, given the prices, he was going to make millions and millions of dollars on this home. Well, this is when he put in $1.5 million of his own money, took out a few $1 million in loans and so forth. This first line is when he started doing it. The second line is when he was done. By the time he was ready to sell the home, the market was gone. The amount of money he had put into the home and that he owed on the home, given all the loans he took out, was far more than the value of the home. He was hoping to sell the home for maybe, I don't know, something around, $5 to $7 million. I think he ended up selling it for just over $1 million. He lost everything in that bubble. Now, don't worry, he's doing fine. He's living the life he wants to and so forth. But I'm telling you, these bubbles are a normal part of capitalism. Now, let me show you the one going on right now. Bitcoin. I want to show you, remember those fingerprints of a bubble that I showed you? Bitcoin for the longest time was worth nothing. And then it went up to $2,000. and then it went up to $8,000. Now, back when it was at $8,000, I would show my students this chart and say, would you invest in Bitcoin? Well, it went up and then it came crashing down. This is the fingerprint of a bubble. Well, is it safe to buy in December of 18? Well, if you bought it, then went up to 12, did all right, but then it came back down a little bit. Well, where is it right now? It's at 9,000. Which direction is it going to go? Who knows? But let me tell you this. Very, 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 very few people are buying Bitcoin with the intent of using it. All of this movement you see for Bitcoin is for speculation. Speculation only, meaning they think it's going to go up, therefore they buy it with the intent of reselling. That's what it is. And in my mind, if something doesn't have any natural value and cannot be used in an economic system easily, why is it worth so much? It's called speculation. So we'll see. Now, on that topic of money, we're going to skip that. Let me show you this one quote from John Kenneth Galbraith. You remember Galbraith? The recurrent ad slowly, erroneously believe the recurrent and sadly, I need to change that typo, believe that effortless enrichment is an entitlement associated with that, with what is thought to be exceptional financial prosperity and wisdom is not something that yields to legislative remedy. I apologize, my microphone is in the way, so it's hard for me to read that aloud. What it basically comes down to is, in this country and capitalism and so forth, we kind of feel the sense that we're entitled to do well, that we see prosperity all around us, and I'm entitled to that level of prosperity. Okay, let's continue our conversation. Let's continue toying with this idea of money. Now, I just brought up Bitcoin there for a moment. I want to be clear. Bitcoin may very well, or at least cyber currency. Bitcoin isn't the only cyber currency. There are hundreds and hundreds of them out there. It's just Bitcoin gets all the press. Cyber currency might very well one day be the future. I think it could very well be. But right now, all the fluctuation you see is on sheer speculation. Bitcoin is worthless. It doesn't exist. Okay? It's an algorithm in the whatever chain. I forget what the chain is called. Oh gosh. If you remember what chain, box chain? Is it box chain? If you know, do me a favor, write it in the comments there. I think it's box chain. Anyway, it's an algorithm. It doesn't exist. And so it's easy to look at Bitcoin and say, it doesn't exist. Why is it worth money? This is stupid. Well, truth is, all money doesn't exist. Money is just something that we agreed to use as a trade. Now, we've talked about this toward the beginning of the semester, but just remember, in the Travels of Marco Polo, the readings that comes up there, it basically reiterates the points that we talked about at the beginning of the semester, that paper money, the only reason paper money has any value is because a government responsible for the economy has decided it has value. It intrinsically has no value. It's just a piece of paper, and not a very good one for writing on or anything like that. So blockchain, it's blockchain. Now I remember. Anyway, so money is fake. Money is totally fake. As a matter of fact, Marco Polo called it a form of alchemy because you turn something that is all over the place, like a tree, and you turn it into a piece of paper that all of a sudden has value. Um, it's it's made up value, but that's okay. Now, so this is from Marco Polo, but let's look at how this works in a POW camp. Later on, when you take a look at this PowerPoint presentation, it talks, I'll show you a video that's there, but here's the idea of the POW camp. This weird, okay, this is World War II. These Allied soldiers are in a POW camp and a Nazi POW camp, and they have a whole economy. They're exchanging goods and services. They trade, they do a lot of bartering, things like that. But interestingly enough, cigarettes kind of became a form of money. Okay? Something would cost 1 pack of cigarettes. Something would cost a carton of cigarettes. Something would cost 3 cigarettes. Cigarettes were just the form of money. Now, I ask here, and we won't do the whole going to the question thing, why cigarettes? Well, when you think about it, cigarettes are really an interesting form of money, because the Red Cross would ship in new cigarettes each month, or however often the Red Cross came in. I do not know the answer to that. But the Red Cross would continually ship in cigarettes, and the soldiers would continually smoke the cigarettes, which means that there was kind of this even constant supply of cigarettes, since people depended on them, right? You're right, Madison. So since cigarettes were coming in and they were being consumed, there was a constant, fairly level supply of cigarettes in the system. And in any economic system using currency, you want to have a constant supply of that currency. You don't want to have a whole bunch or too little. You want it to be finite. So with Bitcoin, for example, they use blockchain to make sure that there will always be a certain number of Bitcoins. There will never be more Bitcoins according to this blockchain technology. Therefore, you know it has value because it has scarcity. Same thing with the cigarettes. Since they had scarcity, they had value. So the point is, money and what we use to trade, whether we're using cigarettes or paper money or Bitcoins, all these things do not exist as a currency, but they have value that we can use in exchange. Okay, so that's all our stuff about money, economic bubbles, things of that nature. Here's a little video that you can watch about the POW camp. Very interesting. Which means I want to wrap up, and we're going to do this in a little bit different fashion. Talking about the romance of a busy broker. Now, this is a very short, very, very short story by O. Henry. And it's kind of it's a fable. It's basically a modern day fable. And it's one of those that has a sort of, Twilight Zone, Outer Limits, the Black Mirror twist ending. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil it for you. Here's what it comes down to is there's this broker, and he's busy. Ergo, romance, busy broker. And he's really, really busy, and he's, meetings and this, that, and the other, and he's just going nuts all the time. And his administrative assistant, his secretary, she comes in, and she's a little googly-eyed, and she kind of is, kind of making eyes toward him and smiling and nudging him, and he's like totally oblivious to it. And she's a little concerned that he's oblivious, but Well, at one point, the broker's partner, I think it is, comes in and says, hey, today we're interviewing for a new administrative assistant. We have some candidates. And the broker's like, why are we hiring another administrative assistant? The one we have here, and I forget her name, she's awesome. I mean, she's really, really, really good. Why would we hire somebody else? And the assistant's like, really, dude? I mean, we planned this. This has been going on for a while. And he says, this is stupid. Why are we hiring somebody else? And the more he thought about it, he thought, I really like our current administrative assistant, the secretary who is making the googly eyes. In fact, I really like her a lot. In fact, I think I'm going to ask her to marry me. So he goes to her and says, listen, I know I'm really busy. I've got another meeting right now, and I've got this proposal I need to sign by this afternoon. There's a lot going on. I just want to ask, so you want to get married? I mean, I've been looking at you for a while. I think you're kind of awesome. And I just think we ought to get married, but I'm totally busy. I need to know right now, chop, chop. What's the plan? Should we get married? And she gets visibly upset. And then she pauses and says, I was kind of afraid this was going to happen. See, here's the thing. We got married last night, but you've been so busy. I wasn't even sure you were present at the wedding. You were there, we got married, but you're so busy, you don't even remember our marriage. Oh, wow, twist ending, Twilight Zone, so on and so forth. Okay, that's cute. But here's the thing, guys, and I really mean this. This sort of crap is real. I mean, real. Okay, maybe people don't forget that they got married last night. Okay, that's extreme. But they don't make it to their kids' soccer games, and they're not able to take family vacations, and they're constantly working even in the evening at home while their kids are saying, hey, do you want to go do something, Mom? Should we go do something, Dad? That sort of thing. So what I would like to do, and this is totally not on the test. This is not in the discussion. We are now done with the lecture portion of today. Thank you very much. I'm here every Monday. Don't forget to tip your waitress. Okay? But if you stick with me for 15 more minutes, I would like to share with you some of the reasons why, and basically spend some time telling you a cautionary tale about why it is, you bet, Nicholas, why it is that we are driven to work constantly, and why the romance of the busy broker is not crazy. Okay? So what I want to do is I'm going to share with you 8 tools that the system will use to control and overwork you. Okay, this is when I am going to go on my anti-system tirade. The system totally wants you to feed it. You've got to feed the beast. Feed me, Seymour, okay? And the system has a lot of tools and tricks it uses to guilt you, to push you, to motivate you, to inspire you to spend every waking moment working so that you can die an early death on your deathbed saying, I wish I'd spent more time with my family. So let me tell you what these things are. One of them you recognize, the profit motive. The profit motive tells us we can never have enough. Okay? Well, capitalism, remember we talked about Galbraith saying that we create artificial needs, we make wants into needs, and we create all this garbage that we sell to feed the beast, the economic beast, and we create these contrived wants. Well, since you can never have enough, there's a lot of stuff out there, and you need to have it all. Remember, one of the problems with the profit motive is that it puts you in a perpetual state of dissatisfaction. Since we always want more, that means my current state is lacking. And so the system, the economic system, will say the way to get out of this is to work harder, earn more money. But you can never earn enough. You can never work hard enough because of the profit motive. So that's the first one. Think about that. Can you really, maybe you can get yourself to the point of where you say, I don't need any more. I'm happy where I am. If you can do that, you take a little bit of power away from the system. The second one, remember, we talked about the Protestant work ethic. The Protestant work ethic tells us that idleness is slothful and that being busy is virtuous. So think about all the times that your parents, myself included, I have done this. Think about all the times that your parents or grandparents, aunts and uncles shamed you when you were playing video games or when you were on the computer or when you were going out with your friends and so on and so forth. Aren't you going to do anything with your life? Aren't you? That's because the Protestant work ethic tells us that if you are not actively creating something, if you're not actively working, then you are slothful, lazy, and idle, and these are sinful. And so therefore, in our economic system, the system rewards productivity and punishes what it perceives as idleness. So even for us, it's hard to be, for myself and my wife and myself, it's very hard for us to be idle. We get exhausted every weekend for everything we're doing. And we always promise ourselves this weekend's going to be different. We're going to relax. We're going to do something we enjoy and so forth. And we rarely do. The system at work will dial this up to 11. Okay, the next one. We want to have it all. You're taught, we are taught at an early age that we can be anything we want to be, that we can have anything we want to have. And so as a choice, we want everything, right? I want to have a thriving career. I want to have a happy family. I want to spend time on my hobbies. I want to travel. I want to have this kind of garage. I want to have this kind of home. I want to have this kind of car. I want to be able to spend this kind of time with my charities and my religious institutions and so forth. We don't recognize that time is finite and energy is finite. We want to have it all, and therefore we work our asses off so that we can try to pursue everything. And this is just another way that the system keeps us feeding the system. Okay, keep going. Fear of missing out, FOMO. You guys know the fear of missing out. It's often used talking about in social media circles, saying that as you're looking at all your friends on Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok and so forth, you see them all having fun, doing great things, and you feel like you're missing out because I'm home in my pajamas doing nothing and I'm not part of the fun. Well, the fear of missing out goes even further than that. The fear of missing out is, I want to invest in Bitcoin. I can't believe I missed out on Bitcoin. I want to, pursue this job opportunity. I want to pursue this educational opportunity. I don't want to say no to any possible opportunity that may very well, prove to be lucrative in the future. And so we spread our time and our energy and our money across all kinds of areas. And we do this at work as well. When you get into your professional careers, you're going to find yourself having to do all kinds of work because you don't want to miss out on future promotional opportunities or project assignments. Now, this leads me, actually, we'll come back here. I'm going to go back to number 5 here. I'm going to go to number 6, which is it's hard to say no. We're afraid that if we say no to something, that we are saying no to an opportunity, that we are saying no to a lucrative relationship, that we are saying no to a future earning, the potential for future earnings. So we say yes to everything. And in fact, at work, if you say no to a manager's request or something and you push back, that costs you capital. Only those who say yes to everything and then underdeliver are rewarded, whereas those who say no but then deliver on the things they were really, they committed to, they're still remembered as the person who said no. And so it's difficult to say no in this system. Going back to number 5, the irony of wealth. This is another way that the system locks you in to having to constantly work and earn. Everything you own requires money to maintain, and you would be shocked and amazed at how much it is. So, for example, I own this home. Well, I got to tend the yard all the time. It takes a lot of time and money and hard work to tend the yard. I got to worry about the furnace going out. I got to worry about what this, air hammer I have going on through the system. I got to worry about the water damage that I have going on. I've got to worry about, all these things. The chimney, I just had the chimney redone because over the years, the chimney fell down. Yeah, right. And so I had to spend $3,000 to do the chimney, $1,200 to fix, a pipe that was under the house. Owning a home costs a lot of money. You know this when you bought a car. Maintaining a car costs a lot of money. Well, here's the thing about our economic system. They want you to buy all kinds of stuff. One home? Why not 2 homes? One car? Why not 2 cars? Why not a boat? Go ahead, get a boat. Why not buy an airplane or a helicopter? Why not go off and get all these things? And yet, it's not the cost of buying it that you need to think about. It's the cost of maintaining it. But therefore, that means you need to work extra hard to maintain the things you have. So that's the irony of wealth. You become a slave to your possessions. And I mean that. Okay. Number 7, being busy, it's a great place to hide. It really is. I'm gonna tell you something. And I want you to take this the right way. The problems of life, they're not at work. Work is pretty awesome. Work, you know what the structure is. You know what the rules are. You know what the policies are. You know who's in the hierarchy. You know who the customer is. You know what your products are. You know what your services are. You know what kind of problems you're going to come across. You know who to collaborate with to solve these problems. You are working in an environment of knowns at work. Doesn't mean you won't have crappy days. Doesn't mean it won't be hard. But at least all the variables, the majority of them are known variables. What makes life really tough is outside of work. Family, friends. Family alone is a constant drain upon your parents, upon you. It's just the way it is, guys. It's just the way it is. There's a reason you wanted to move out. You were done with those people, right? And they love you. Oh my gosh, they love you. And they will always, always look after you. But when you moved out, they were ready, okay? Because raising a family is really, really, really hard work. And there are no known variables. None at all. No known variables. So what happens? Well, you hide at work. There's a reason why some of us had parents who would go into work at 6 a.m. and come back at 9 p.m. and then during the weekend would work. And there's a reason that we hardly ever saw them, because the stresses and issues and challenges and obstacles at home were too much to bear. And so we would hide in a safe place where we could at least work with some controlled variables. Some of you may understand what I'm saying right now, but trust me, you're going to understand a lot more in the future. And so this is why we spend a lot of time there. And work knows it, and they take advantage of this. All right, last one, number 8. We frickin' love it. We love working, all right? We brag about how busy we are. Oh my gosh, I hear this crap all the time. I hear it from other professors, and I just want to pull my hair out. We have it as this kind of red badge of courage, this sense of martyrdom. Oh, I'm so behind on my grading. Now, when a professor says, oh, I'm so behind on my grading, what they're trying to say is, I'm so important and I am so busy and my time is being pulled upon from so many areas that, oh gosh, I'm just behind on it. And we're supposed to say, oh, kokoro-sama desu. You're such a hard worker. Oh boy, you really work hard. You're so busy. No. I'm sorry, another faculty who are watching this right now, I'm sorry. When I hear, oh, I'm so behind on my grading, what I hear is I do not know how to prioritize my time and to properly allocate my time and effort to all the responsibilities I hold. Okay, say that, right? Well, this happens in the workplace all the time. We love to brag about how busy we are, about how behind we are, how late we are, because somehow or another it's this sick message that I'm more important than you are. I'm busier than you are. Therefore, I am more virtuous and more valuable than you are. Because the fact that you're up and you're not behind on everything means that you're not as valuable to the system. Me, on the other hand, I'm really valuable to the system. And so I have a lot more responsibilities than you do. Bull crap. Bull crap. But the system plays off of this. So I understand that was a total long tirade, okay? But I just want you to know that these are all tools that the system, and it doesn't do it consciously, people. They're not evil. We all play into it, myself included. These are all tools that the system uses to keep you working, to keep you focused on earning money, to keep you addicted to money, and to keep you dependent on the system and itself and the money. There's a reason why Galbraith called it the dependence effect. The economy is dependent upon you to buy crap 24/7, which means the system is dependent upon you to work constantly. Okay, so there you go. High school math teacher's daughter. Okay, that's good, Madison. That's good. Everyone, thank you very much for joining me on this lecture. Thank you very much for letting me have my little spiel there. I really mean it in the best intentions. I want you to live a happy, thriving, productive, self-actualized life. And sometimes that's going to mean bucking against the system. So take it for what it's worth. I'm on my own journey, and I hope I can help you on your journey in any way possible. I am going to hang out here if you have any questions, any comments. Otherwise, thank you very much, and we'll see you again soon. Have a great week.